Good evening, and welcome to Third Church of Christ Scientist of New York City. Let's begin with singing hymn number 115, 115. I'll read the second verse. We would trust in thy protecting, wholly rest upon thine arm. Follow wholly thy directing, thou our only guard from harm. Keep us from our own undoing, help us turn to thee when tried, still our strength in thee renewing, keep us ever at thy side. Hymn number 115. Okay, the organ is not working. I'll read from the Bible and from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. The subject of this evening's readings is direction. The Bible. Psalms. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation, and hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For unto thee will I pray. My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up. For thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. As for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness because of mine enemies. Make thy way straight before my face. But let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee. For thou, Lord, wilt bless the righteous. With favor wilt thou compass him as with a shield. Proverbs. My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. Write them upon the table of thine heart. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel, and marrow to thy bones. The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright shall deliver them, but transgressors shall be taken in their own naughtiness. Isaiah. Thus saith the Lord, the Holy One of Israel and his Maker. Ask me of things to come concerning my sons, and concerning the work of my hands command ye me. I have made the earth, and created man upon it. I, even my hands, have stretched out the heavens, and all their host have I commanded. I have raised him up in righteousness, and I will direct all his ways. And thine ears shall hear a word behind thee, saying, This is the way, walk ye in it, when ye turn to the right hand, and when ye turn to the left. Jonah. Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come up before me. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa. And he found a ship going to Tarshish, so he paid the fare thereof, and went down into it, to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord sent out a great wind into the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was like to be broken. Then the mariners were afraid, and cried every man unto his God, and cast forth the wares that were in the ship into the sea, to lighten it of them. But Jonah was gone down into the sides of the ship, and he lay and was fast asleep. So the shipmaster came to him and said unto him, What meanest thou, O sleeper? Arise, call upon thy God, if so be that God will think upon us, that we perish not. And they said every one to his fellow, Come, and let us cast lots, that we may know for whose cause this evil is upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell upon Jonah. Then said they unto him, Tell us, we pray thee, for whose cause this evil is upon us. What is thine occupation, and whence comest thou? What is thy country, and of what people art thou? And he said unto them, I am an Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, which made the sea and the dry land. Then were the men exceedingly afraid, and said unto him, Why hast thou done this? For the men knew that he fled from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them. Then said they unto him, What shall we do unto thee, that the sea may be calm unto us? For the sea wrought and was tempestuous. And he said unto them, Take me up, and cast me forth into the sea. So shall the sea be calm unto you, for I know that for my sake this great tempest is upon you. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring it to the land, but they could not, for the sea wrought and was tempestuous against them. Wherefore they cried unto the Lord, and said, We beseech thee, O Lord, we beseech thee, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not upon us innocent blood. For thou, O Lord, hast done as it pleased thee. So they took up Jonah and cast him forth into the sea, and the sea ceased from her raging. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and offered a sacrifice unto the Lord, and made vows. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly, and said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice. For thou hadst cast me into the deep, in the midst of the seas, and the floods compassed me about. All thy billows and thy waves passed over me. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came in unto thee, into thine holy temple. And the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon the dry land. And the word of the Lord came unto Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go unto Nineveh, that great city, and preach unto it the preaching that I bid thee. So Jonah arose and went unto Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceeding great city of 3 days' journey, and Jonah began to enter into the city a day's journey, and he cried and said, Yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. So the people of Nineveh believed God, and proclaimed a fast, and put on sackcloth, from the greatest of them even to the least of them. For the word came unto the king of Nineveh, and he arose from his throne, and he laid his robe from him, and covered him with sackcloth, and sat in ashes. And he caused it to be proclaimed and published through Nineveh by the decree of the king and his nobles, saying, Let neither man nor beast, herd nor flock taste anything. Let them not feed nor drink water. Who can tell if God will turn and repent and turn away from his fierce anger, that we perish not? And God saw their works, that they turned from their evil way, and God repented of the evil that he had said that he would do unto them, and he did it not. Matthew. At that time, Jesus went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were an hungered, and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. But he said unto them, Have ye not read what David did when he was an hungered, and they that were with him? How he entered into the house of God, and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests. Or have ye not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath, and are blameless? But I say unto you, that in this place is one greater than the temple. For the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day. And when he was departed thence, he went into their synagogue. And behold, there was a man which had his hand withered. And they asked him, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days, that they might accuse him? And he said unto them, What man shall there be among you that shall have 1 sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold on it and lift it out? How much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. Then saith he to the man, Stretch forth thine hand. And he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole like as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and held a council against him, how they might destroy him. But when Jesus knew it, he withdrew himself from thence, and great multitudes followed him, and he healed them all. The men of Nineveh shall rise in judgment with this generation, and shall condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonas. And behold, a greater than Jonas is here. 2 Thessalonians. The Lord direct your hearts into the love of God and into the patient waiting for Christ. I'll now read correlative passages from the Christian Science textbook, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, by Mary Baker Eddy. We walk in the footsteps of truth and love by following the example of our Master in the understanding of divine metaphysics. Christianity is the basis of true healing. Whatever holds human thought in line with unself-love receives directly the divine power. Knowledge that we can accomplish the good we hope for stimulates the system to act in the direction which mind points out. The sculptor turns from the marble to his model in order to perfect his conception. We are all sculptors, working at various forms, molding and chiseling thoughts. What is the model before mortal mind? Is it imperfection, joy, sorrow, sin, suffering? Have you accepted the mortal model? Are you reproducing it? Then you are haunted in your work by vicious sculptors and hideous forms. Do you not hear from all mankind of the imperfect model? The world is holding it before your gaze continually. The result is that you are liable to follow those lower patterns, limit your life work, and adopt into your experience the angular outline and deformity of matter models. To remedy this, we must first turn our gaze in the right direction and then walk that way. We must form perfect models in thought and look at them continually, or we shall never carve them out in grand and noble lives. Let unselfishness, goodness, mercy, justice, health, holiness, love, the kingdom of heaven, reign within us, and sin, disease, and death will diminish until they finally disappear. Let us accept science, relinquish all theories based on sense testimony, give up imperfect models and elusive ideals, and so let us have one God, one mind, and that one perfect, producing his own models of excellence. Let the male and female of God's creating appear. Let us feel the divine energy of spirit, bringing us into newness of life, and recognizing no mortal nor material power as able to destroy. Let us rejoice that we are subject to the divine powers that be. Such is the true science of being. Man walks in the direction towards which he looks, and where his treasure is, there will his heart be also. If our hopes and affections are spiritual, they come from above, not from beneath, and they bear, as of old, the fruits of the Spirit. If we are sensibly with the body and regard omnipotence as a corporeal, material person whose ear we would gain, we are not absent from the body and present with the Lord in the demonstration of spirit. We cannot serve two masters. To be present with the Lord is to have not mere emotional ecstasy or faith, but the actual demonstration and understanding of life as revealed in Christian Science. To be with the Lord is to be in obedience to the law of God, to be absolutely governed by divine love, by spirit, not by matter. Jesus bore our infirmities. He knew the error of mortal belief, and with his stripes, the rejection of error, we are healed. Despised and rejected of men, returning blessing for cursing, he taught mortals the opposite of themselves, even the nature of God. And when error felt the power of truth, the scourge and the cross awaited the great teacher. Yet he swerved not, well knowing that to obey the divine order and trust God saves retracing and traversing anew the path from sin to holiness. It is the living Christ, the practical truth, which makes Jesus the resurrection and the life to all who follow him indeed. Obeying his precious precepts, following his demonstration so far as we apprehend it, we drink of his cup, partake of his bread, are baptized with his purity, and at last we shall rest, sit down with him in a full understanding of the divine principle which triumphs over death. Accidents are unknown to God or immortal mind, and we must leave the mortal basis of belief and unite with the one mind in order to change the notion of chance to the proper sense of God's unerring direction, and thus bring out harmony. Under divine providence, there can be no accidents, since there is no room for imperfection in perfection. To ascertain our progress, we must learn where our affections are placed and whom we acknowledge and obey as God. If divine love is becoming nearer, dearer, and more real to us, matter is then submitting to spirit. The objects we pursue and the spirit we manifest reveal our standpoint and show what we are winning. Divine mind rightly demands man's entire obedience, affection, and strength. No reservation is made for any lesser loyalty. Obedience to truth gives man power and strength. Submission to error superinduces loss of power. There is but one way to heaven, harmony. And Christ, in divine science, shows us this way. It is to know no other reality, to have no other consciousness of life than good, God and his reflection, and to rise superior to the so-called pain and pleasure of the senses. Self-love is more opaque than a solid body. In patient obedience to a patient God, let us labor to dissolve with the universal solvent of love the adamant of error, self-will, self-justification, and self-love, which wars against spirituality and is the law of sin and death. If truth is overcoming error in your daily walk and conversation, you can finally say, I have fought a good fight. I have kept the faith, because you are a better man. This is having our part in the at-one-ment with truth and love. Christians do not continue to labor and pray, expecting because of another's goodness, suffering, and triumph that they shall reach his harmony and reward. If the disciple is advancing spiritually, he is striving to enter in. He constantly turns away from material sense and looks towards the imperishable things of spirit. If honest, he will be in earnest from the start and gain a little each day in the right direction, till at last he finishes his course with joy. Let's pray together silently for a few moments, and then pray aloud together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Let's sing hymn number 304. The words of this hymn are a poem titled Feed My Sheep, written by the discoverer and founder of Christian Science, Mary Baker Eddy. I'll read the entire poem. Shepherd, show me how to go o'er the hillside steep, how to gather, how to sow, how to feed thy sheep. I will listen for thy voice, lest my footsteps stray. I will follow and rejoice all the rugged way. Thou wilt bind the stubborn will, wound the callous breast, make self-righteousness be still, break earth's stupid rest. Strangers on a barren shore, laboring long and lone, we would enter by the door, and thou knowest thine own. So, when day grows dark and cold, tear or triumph harms, lead thy lambkins to the fold, take them in thine arms, feed the hungry, heal the heart, till the morning's beam, white as wool, ere they depart, shepherd, wash them clean. Number 304. This church is a branch of the Mother Church, the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts. We hold Sunday services at 11 a.m. and Wednesday testimony meetings at 7:30 p.m. We also have services in Spanish, Sundays at 12 noon and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. All services are held in person and online, and all are welcome. Third Church offers Sunday school classes in person and online for children and teens. These free one-hour classes are available each Sunday. At Sunday school, students learn how much God loves them and cares for them. They also learn about the Bible characters and lessons and the healing power of prayer. For more information on times and classes, please send us an email, thirdchurch@thirdchurchnyc.com. The Christian Science Tri-State Reading Room Committee invites you to its annual meeting. That's on Saturday, November 2nd at 2 p.m. to be held at Third Church, this church. The speaker will be Trevor Yates, a Christian Science practitioner. His topic is supporting the city with Christian Science. There will also be attendance available via Zoom. To attend via Zoom, go to www.csreadingroomnyc.com/annual meeting. The meeting will also be recorded for post-meeting viewing. Do you know how to pray effectively? Would you like to learn? Third Church of Christ Scientist, New York City, and other Christian Science churches in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut invite you to a series of spiritual roadmaps, weekly Sunday evening inspirational radio talks, which will air, continuing throughout October and November, from 8:03 p.m. to 9 p.m. on WOR 710 AM radio and on WOR.com. The series, titled Spiritual Solutions for Today's Challenges, will address the following topics. Prayer brings peace. How spiritual perception brings healing. Finding unity and abundance through prayer, and learning to love your enemies. The internationally based speakers are members of the Christian Science Board of Lectureship. The next talk in the series, on Sunday, October 13th, is Prayer Brings Peace by Edwina Aubin, CSB. It's sponsored by Third Church, this church, and First Church, Ridgefield, Connecticut. Replays of each talk will be available at 710WOR.com/spiritual solutions through the end of November, and on thirdchurchnyc.com through the end of December. Join us, starting on Sundays at 8:03 p.m., 8:03, on WOR 710 AM radio. We promise spiritual enlightenment and uplift. What could be better than that? This meeting is now open for all to share experiences of healing and spiritual insights that prove God's ever-presence and power in their lives. If you're listening by telephone and would like to speak, press *6 and wait until your line is unmuted. Please speak directly into the microphone of your telephone. Your message will be easier to hear if you do not use the speaker function. And if you're watching via Zoom, you can choose the raise your hand icon or unmute yourself and speak.
I would like to testify to a healing I had last week. It was, I don't remember which day it was, but it was the middle of the night, and I woke with some sort of mental disturbance about minor things, I think. But I was having trouble getting back to sleep, and I noticed at that point that my stomach was quite upset. And so I decided to stay in bed and just to work with Mother's Evening Prayer. And when I got to the fourth verse about being sheltered under the mighty wing, secret of the narrow space, etc., and the fifth verse, no snare, no foul, or pestilence or pain, I could just feel all the symptoms of the upset stomach just absolutely disappear. And I've had that kind of healing before with working with those verses. I've kind of stuck with verse 4 and 5 this week because it's a place to kind of anchor oneself. And I've been trying to anchor myself there when thinking about and knowing the truth about this hurricane that is predicted to be quite catastrophic to a large number of people. And of course we have in the Bible, especially the story of Jesus calming the waves. And we have the story of Mrs. Eddy in Pleasant View. I think a tornado was coming straight for the house, and she stood in the bay window of her study and just looked out the window, and to her, she saw not the black funnel clouds, but the face of God. I think one has to be wise if one's going to do that, but she obviously was on the Mount of Inspiration, and we have two examples of that in this week's lesson. Moses coming back down with the Ten Commandments, and Jesus in the Transfiguration story, in which their countenance, their skin shone. So clear a transparency were they for the divine being. And I thought, well, that is the goal, and actually that's the point from which we need to work out. And to know that in this case with the mortal mind's vicious and turbulent false beliefs taking form in terms of bad weather, that it really is all thought, and that matter cannot make its own conditions, and to hold to that while in no way diminishing the fear and the necessary steps needed for these people to take. But that Transfiguration story and Mrs. Eddy's example of really just looking out her window and seeing through mortal minds viciousness and wickedness is something to hold to. Thank you for the readings.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you for that previous testimony. It's very interesting, but I've been in down south in the areas where they have cyclones, and they always tell you, run away from the windows. But she did exactly the opposite. She looked mortal mind right in the eye and got rid of the fear. And also that hymn, Mother's Evening Prayer, my dear friend Myrna Bismarck, who was a soloist here in the city for at Fifth Church, and she had sung that. She had sung I believe, the solo by James McDermott. The words are by James McDermott, and we recorded it. And we would come into this church, we'd drive in, we'd listen to that all the way in. There would be people cutting people off on the road and all kinds of chaos going on the highway. We just listened to this beautiful word of Mother's evening prayer. And there's a one point in that prayer, in that solo, where McDermott says, his arm encircles me and mine and all, and all is on a very high note. And it's just so incredible. It's in the second verse, I believe. But the fourth and fifth are wonderful. And I remember a testimony once in this church years ago, a visitor who had lost his mother. And he was having difficulty getting over the grief. And that fourth verse, in that sweet secret place of the Most High, he realized that's where his mother was. And that broke the grief, that lifted him above it. But the reason I was going to testify tonight is I couldn't remain silent for other reasons on the subject of direction, because something in my experience, oh, and by the way, I must say that I still, even though Myrna has gone on, she's no longer with us. For instance, I listen to that solo all the time in the car now. Driving here tonight, I listened to it all the way in, over and over again. I put it on repeat of singing. It's just so comforting. It's the presence. Just you feel the presence of God is right here with you. But what I really wanted to give gratitude for tonight, it'd be terrible for me to remain silent. And I've given this before. I'm sorry if I have to give it again, but because of the subject. And it goes back to years ago when I was in high school, and in New York City, I was in Brooklyn, grew up in Brooklyn, and in New York City, they have these, in New York State actually, they have a thing called New York State Regents Exam, scholarship exam. And I was going to Daycroft in Connecticut at the time, but I still was residing in New York, so I was eligible to take the exam. But I had been out of town. I commuted to Daycroft in Stamford, Connecticut. But I took the day off to take that school. I saw my classmates that I knew from school, and because I'd been there 3 years before in that school, and took the exam. And it was said at the exam, the beginning exam, you cannot, the sections are all timed. You cannot go back. Once you've gone through the morning session of the exam, you cannot go back and look, or you will be disqualified. Your paper will be just thrown away. And when you take part of testmanship in taking exams is you get more taken off for wrong answers than for blank answers, because they want to discourage people from guessing. So if you don't know the answer, you're better off leaving it blank. So, National Merit Scholarship, all these tests, that's what you did. You left them blank. And I was totally unprepared for this. All my friends, they had been studying for months to prepare for this test, but I had no idea. Wasn't prepared at all for it. So all morning long, I left a lot of blank answers, And at lunchtime, we went across to the coffee shop, and I heard the other students saying, "Oh, this test is an exception to that rule, that they don't take off for guessing, and you should never leave anything blank." And I left tons and hundreds of questions because I was so unprepared. So when I got back, all I had was a blank answer sheet with these little boxes. I had no idea what the questions were. I couldn't look at them. And I simply had to fill in with a pencil. It would be crazy just leave it blank. So I just reached out, and I think it was with this hymn that we just sang, "Shepherd, show me how to go. And I will listen for thy voice, lest my footsteps stray." I said, "Father, just show me." And I just went down, listening and being guided to fill this box or that box. And then in the afternoon, I did the same thing. If I didn't know the answer to a question, I simply listened, Father, what is the right thing to do? And I figured I had blown that test. I left the test, I really blew it bad. And I guess weeks went by, maybe a month or so, and I was at the main library here in Brooklyn, Grand Army Plaza, and I was coming back home from it, walking by Prospect Park, and one of my students at the school who I had known, she walked up to me and said, "Congratulations." I said, "What? What are you that about?" "Oh, don't you know? Didn't you see your name in the newspaper? You're only one of 2 people who in the whole school that won a scholarship." I said, oh, okay. I smiled and I said, well, I figured it must have been a misprint or something. She didn't know what she was talking about. But sure enough, I got home and the next day there was a letter from the lieutenant governor and then from the governor congratulating me that it was true. And it was a humbling experience, as the readings pointed out tonight. Lean not unto thine own understanding. It was like he said to me, mine was telling me, hey guy, hey dummy, you don't know anything. I'm the one who knows it all, so you better listen to me. And so it taught me how little I really knew, because it said, you just listen to me for guidance. I could have never, ever had done that on my own. And it showed me the might of mind and intelligence. And then I'd just like to add to that, which then saw me through later when I was drafted and sent in the Army, sent to Vietnam, and I was in a very tight combat situation. We were surrounded on a mountaintop, just like you see in all the movies. Mountaintop surrounded by 2,000 enemy troops, kept trying to overrun us. And all I had was, we didn't have full text lesson. I didn't even have marked books. I just had a little small serviceman's edition, but I had the quarterly and I had the small books. So I had been on the perimeter all night because they hadn't opened the first attack yet. So all night I was on the perimeter guarding, and then I went back to my bunker, little 2-man bunker, and thought came to me, well, wash up and get something to eat. I said, no. They took one of our outposts that night. I said, just go inside the bunker and start reading the lesson, get your thought clear. And I got up to about the 3rd section, and all of a sudden, the first mortar round of the entire attack hit right outside the bunker, and the dirt came in, and 2 of the cooks were running by, and one was instantly killed, the other one badly wounded. But it said me, mind told me, get in and read the lesson. And then maybe a week later, we had gone through a lot of attacks, and then it was very difficult. We lost a lot of people. And then once again, it was a lesson. The lesson was on ancient and modern necromancy. It was all about war. I said, gee, this is the hottest place in the world right now, and I'm the only Christian Scientist in this unit. This lesson was written for me at this point, because we were making headlines. CBS cameramen got wounded trying to come in, and we were making headlines back in the United States. And I just said, okay, this is for me. And I remember it was a Monday, and I had just read the lesson. We had been hit with mortar rounds for a whole previous week, and when you send these mortar rounds in, they set the charges back so they don't go off immediately on impact in the bunker. They go through the bunker and go off inside to inflict the maximum casualties. So we got one right outside our door, and I was a 2-man bunker. My friend said to me, gee, that was close. So I just turned over on my stomach, and I just started thinking of what I had read. Clad in the panoply of love, human hatred cannot reach you. That's the thought that came to me. And the very next round hit our bunker. We took a direct hit. And it lifted me up, down, when all the dust in the bunker, but my friend was badly wounded. It hit a little bit more on his side, and I got a medic for him, but nobody could believe. They saw what happened to the cell phone, a little two-man bunker. The people back in the rear who had known me, they thought I was dead. They couldn't believe that I was completely protected. And it was once again, there was shrapnel hit, ripped over a C ration can at my head. Shrapnel riddled the laundry bag at my feet. It was completely protected. And so, yes, God's direction. God, the 5 G's, people like to say, God, good, guides, guards, and governs. And he certainly does. And I'm so grateful that all my life that I've had Christian Science from Sunday school, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the reference of people who may not know, the last 2 testifiers referred to the hymn Mother's Evening Prayer, which is written by Mary Baker Eddy. It's in the Christian Science hymnal, begins various different melodies, but it begins with number 207.
Thank you for your readings. Speaking of appropriate and beneficent hymns, my wife and I received a communication from a friend down in Florida who was going to be attending a meeting if she had electricity. And so we've been thinking about her. And my wife astutely thought of an appropriate hymn, and I'd like to read it. It's very helpful in thinking about the people in Florida this evening. In heavenly love abiding, no change my heart shall fear, and safe is such confiding, for nothing changes here. The storm may roar without me, my heart may low be laid, but God is round about me, and can I be dismayed? Wherever he may guide me, no want shall turn me back. My shepherd is beside me, and nothing can I lack. His wisdom ever waketh, his sight is never dim. He knows the way he taketh, and I will walk with him. Green pastures are before me, which yet I have not known and not seen. Bright skies will soon be o'er me, where darkest clouds have been. My hope I cannot measure, my path in life is free. My Father has my treasure, and he will walk with me. I would like to say a couple of things. In the talk that in the story that you read of Noah being directed to go to Nineveh, Jonah going to Nineveh, but refusing and going in the other direction, trying to avoid it. Nineveh was the capital of what is now Iraq, but then Babylonia. And at one time, the head of the Babylonian Empire was Sennacherib. And Sennacherib and Hezekiah have been in the lesson in the last couple of weeks. Hezekiah has been in 2, and Sennacherib at least in 1. And when it sort of gives a background that Jonah did not want to go to Nineveh. And the reason was that that was the capital of the Babylonian Empire. And it said, even in the story, that it took 3 days to walk from the beginning to the end of that city. A week ago tonight, there was a program on NPR, or not the radio, but on the television, public television, a story about the digs and what they've been finding out in Nineveh. And Sennacherib was the king, and that was his city. And it showed that this enormous palace in which he had his, where he resided. And the country was very militaristic, and it said that pillaging was, one of the foundations of their economy. So they were a warlike government, city. So to go there and preach to them was quite an undertaking, and Jonah feared this and went in the other direction. It's very interesting what they say about the concept of God at that time, because the sailors were very much afraid. In this storm, they were that set upon the ship that Jonah was riding in. They were afraid of his God, and they thought that the gods were going to punish him and them along with him, and so that was the concept of God, a God that sends bad things. And when Jonah got to Nineveh, the people were very afraid of the influence of God on them. And again, it was a fear of God sending wrath and destruction. The Lord's Prayer says, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And the Mary Baker Eddy's interpretation of that, lead us not into temptation, but delivereth us from sin, disease, and death. Well, God does not lead us into bad situations. Our concept of God is a loving God, that life separate and apart from God is its own destruction. Sin is its own destruction. Even today, in the Navy, if there's a sailor that's considered to be bad luck, he's called a Jonah. It's something, I don't know that people know the story about Jonah, but Jonah is an unlucky shipmate. It's still a belief. I'm very grateful for the tools with which we can deal with destructive forces and the belief in destructive forces, and to know that God is everywhere, omnipresent, all-knowing, and all-powerful, omnipotent. And we have a foundation for which to deny any power separate and apart from our loving God and parent.
Thank you. The hymn that he read was number 148, in case people want to look at it in the hymnal, In Heavenly Love Abiding. Thank you all for your testimonies and your prayers. And we join in the loving and protective prayer for our fellow beings in the path of the storm, and know that they're held in the secret place of the Most High with all of us. Let's conclude with singing hymn number 39. Come, gracious Spirit, heavenly love, with light and comfort from above. Be thou our guardian, thou our guide, o'er every thought and step preside. The light of truth to us display, that we may know and choose thy way. Plant holy joy in every heart, that we from thee may ne'er depart. Lead us, O Christ, thou living way, nor let us from thy precepts stray. Lead us to God, our heavenly rest, that we may be forever blessed. Number 39.